performance management, the way we currently do it, is trash, should be thrown in the trash heap. So tell me, where do we go wrong right now in performance management?
I think it starts from the fact that our current performance management process is modeled after a World War I military process to determine who should rise in the ranks. So what we see with most of our typical performance processes in organizations is that they're hierarchical, top down, and there are rating and rankings, which that's where it came from. The ranking was part of the World War I process to determine who should rise in the ranks. And this process was introduced into the workplace really broadly in the 1970s and honestly hasn't changed much since. But
we do a lot with businesses where it's like kind of a military model.
Yes, very
like even
much
strategy
so.
Comes from the military.
And, it has worked. That's part of the struggle with performance management is that it was useful and better than what we had at one time. And that's the struggle. But it's not that way anymore. Now it is creating a lot of administrative load and work. It is not helping people improve performance. And so what are we going to do about that?
So what changed?
So this is my theory based on my experience, but there are two things. One is access to information. So where the leader used to be the person that employees needed to go to find out how to do their jobs better, or to go to for information, a reference, a resource. Now employees have access to global experts at their fingertips. People who know more about probably what they're looking for than their own boss. And so that relationship is not as tethered to, I'm your leader, I'm the knowledge holder. That's no longer what a leader does. And so leaders are still incredibly important to help provide context, support, guidance, but they're not the knowledge holders anymore. The second thing is, anyone who grew up in the 80s or beyond is used to democracy. And so this authoritarian kind of hierarchical thing where I'm an organization, I'm going to pay you 6 figures to come in and bring your talent and the thing that I really need for you, but I'm going to insist on tying your shoes for you when it comes to performance management. That is not acceptable. And so what's happened is that, people are used to having a voice. They're used to being able to direct their lives, whether it's in school, whether it's on social media in their life. And then they come into work and there's this kind of superficial structure where, okay, you're kind of powerless again. And I'm the one who's going to tell you what to do. And I'm the one who's going to rate you. And yes, you're totally capable, but, sit down and let me tell you how to do this. That just doesn't work for people anymore.
I wonder how well it ever worked for people other than, like in a lot of the initial foundations of management were in factories. But that is a particular kind and very specific and dying, at least in the US. I mean, there's always going to be manufacturing, but we don't really do a lot of it in the US. That's a dwindling model here. Most people are starting to lean more towards the knowledge worker, where you have a boss who, they're responsible for coordinating. They're responsible for sort of the checking in to make sure everything is actually functioning the way that they think. And there are a bunch of other functions too, but like that, primarily it's like coordinating, support, efficiencies in there. But the worker themselves is often doing something that isn't actually in the wheelhouse of the manager. So like we're in a lot of hospitals and it's pretty unusual to see a CEO who was a doctor.
Right.
And that's fine because like these are actually two separate professions. Like you have to learn how to be a manager. There are skills associated with that. And you have to learn how to be a doctor. There are skills associated with that. And so there's this you're right, there's this break in terms of we don't need them for the knowledge directly. All those resources are out there and they're much more accessible than they've ever been.
Absolutely. I think one of the challenges for leaders is that we don't treat leadership as a separate set of skills, that when we promote leaders into the role, a lot of what I see leaders getting in terms of information is process information. How do I get in the computer and create a performance review? How do I do this? How do I follow the process of my organization?
It's checking
and not
boxes.
My skills. Yes, checking the boxes. That's exactly right. And that's all they have. Organizations have invested so much time and money in the process that they have, that there is this sunk cost fallacy of, how do I just make this work? I've done all this. I have this. How do I make this work?
Right. And I talk to people all the time. All these managers, they hate the performance evaluations. It takes up so much of their time. And to do them well, you have to be like tracking this stuff all year long. Like you have to have a method to actually, otherwise the performance evaluation is only an evaluation of the last 2 months because that's what's in your head.
Right. So on average, leaders spend about 210 hours a year on performance reviews. And so that's 5 weeks out of their year on performance reviews. And if they were helpful, then maybe that's time that's well spent.
Right.
But the research also shows that about 30% of people after performance reviews have decreased performance because they are demotivated. Because if you talk to employees about performance reviews and what they're getting from that, they're typically past focused. They are not timely. And so I've just done all this great work, and you're pointing out to me the things that I didn't do well over the past 6 months. And you weren't there to actually help me and support me when that was happening. But now we're talking about it in December. And so what I think I've learned about performance reviews is that they were designed to capture the low performers. They are not designed to improve performance for the average to high performers. And so yes, we build guardrails to capture the low performers, but do we build an entire system around those people? Or do we build a system that works for average to high performers?
So like, let me just give an analogy here, because I think it's one that everybody can associate with. Like, have you ever been brought into a room full of people to have somebody yell at you for something that one person in that room did?
Oh, yeah.
Right. We
come on.
We suggest not doing that, by the way.
Yes.
Like, deal one-on-one. This is a cowardly way. And I love many managers who have done this. You have other traits that are valuable, but the ones who've done it that I'm aware of, we've had this conversation. So I'm not telling them anything they don't know. But it's cowardly because you don't want to have a one-on-one conversation that's hard. You're right. Like, the performance appraisals are built around trying to find the people who are not doing their fair share.
Right.
And as a result, we're bringing everybody in to have a conversation that makes everybody feel like they're the low performer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we know what doesn't work. Here's where we start with the alternative. We have tons of research that tells us what doesn't work. What doesn't work is infrequent communication. What doesn't work is supervisor only top-down evaluations. Those are incredibly subjective. And so we've got this great information about what doesn't work. So you flip that on its head, and this is where we get kind of the new way and the new path forward. And I have 3 easy things that I recommend any company start with if they're trying to make the move. Because like you said earlier, it's incredibly overwhelming to think about. It's like, where do I start? Do I have to redo the whole system? Mm-hmm. Well, ultimately, eventually, yes, your goal is to move away from what's happening, but there are 3 shifts that you can apply no matter what system you're using. You can start today. And the first is really, really easy, and it's really amazing. If you only do one thing, do this, because it's the easiest, and it's future-focused feedback. So a lot of times you can tell somebody the exact same thing with a future focus that you would by saying what they have done wrong in the past. And the problem with past focused feedback is it's incredibly demotivating. If somebody actually cares about their job, if somebody actually cares about their work, hearing what they did wrong 2 weeks ago, 6 months ago, that they can now no longer fix is incredibly demoralizing. Also, you can say, you know what, in the future, I think it would be even better if you did this. Same information. You're giving them the exact same, really, guidance. But instead of hammering them for something, and it doesn't mean you have to do that, but that's often what it feels like for people, even bringing something up that they have done wrong in the past.
Sure, you trigger defensiveness for sure.
Absolutely. And so you instead say, well, in the future, I think it would be even better this way. And there are a few things that happen with that. First, it's feedback with hope, because there's absolutely nothing I can do about what I've done wrong in the past, but there's something I can do next time I do this activity if you've told me what that is.
Yeah, I mean, you could kind of look at it like you're in the woods, and instead of being like, well, you took the wrong path and now like we're in this quagmire.
Yes.
Like instead you're like, we're here.
Yeah.
Here's the path.
Absolutely.
Here's the path out.
Yeah, because mistakes are inevitable. But what's happening is that we're hyper focused on what went wrong and not what went right when we're looking at past performance. And so when we're talking about future performance, not only are you talking about how you could do even better. So it's not this like, oh, that was wrong, that was bad, but this is how you could do even better. And it's something that they could actually take action on and improve. And it's also something that you could help them with. So you can practically help somebody with future focused feedback. You can say, in the future, I think it would be even better if you did this. And here's how I can help you prepare for that or to do that.
Collette, do you have any stories that you could share, like an example just to illustrate?
One of the last people I worked with who applied this future focused feedback, and it was kind of like a side conversation. I had met with this group of entrepreneurs and small business owners, and I was talking about this because a lot of small businesses don't even really have a performance management process, but they're really trying to figure it out and to put something in place.
Yeah.
And so this person applied the future focused feedback after I was in there talking to her group, and she emailed me, I guess a week later, and she was like, you are not kidding. I had conversations with my people and it was fantastic. They were so much more engaged. They were so much more involved in the conversation, because that's how you hook average to high performers. These are people who want to do a great job.
Yeah.
These are people
We're not worried about the people who are mailing it in, because they're going to mail it in no matter what. And
exactly.
That's a question of whether or not you're going to keep them around.
This is food for the average to high performers.